the chronicle of gold's beginning. The camp of Eridu lay still under the pale shimmer of the moon, the marsh waters breathing softly against the shore. Beyond the faint glow of the fires, shadows moved in silence. The heroes of Nibiru, those who had braved the long, perilous crossing through the heavens, were at rest. They had been fed, their hunger sated, their limbs soothed by the stillness of this alien land. But for Ea, the time for rest was over. The great task, the reason for their coming, could no longer wait. He stood before the towering shape of the chariot, its frame gleaming dully in the starlight, a vessel that was both their shelter and the hope of Nibiru's survival. His eyes, bright and thoughtful, swept over the assembly of his men. "We begin," he said at last, his voice carrying a measured weight. From within the chariot he roused the firestones. They awoke with a deep, resonant hum, their energies coursing like veins of living light through the vessel's bones. The great cracker came alive, vibrating with contained power, and then from the side of the chariot, that which water sucks extended outward, a great arm descending into the dark rippling marsh. The waters surged upward, drawn into a vessel of shimmering crystals. Within that chamber, the crystals glowed faintly, drinking from the liquid all that was metal, leaving only the lifeless water behind. The stripped water poured out again through that which spits out, splashing into the fish pond where silver fins darted in sudden alarm. So began Ea's labor, a work of craft and cunning. For 6 earth days the cycle continued, waters drawn in, waters spat out, metals captured. On the 7th day, Ea and Alalu stood together over the vessel. They sifted through the gathered matter with hands darkened by toil. Iron, much copper, other metals too, but of gold only a meager scattering. Alalu frowned, the lines in his face deepening. Ea did not speak, but the shadow in his eyes told of his disappointment. They began again, for in the chariot there was another vessel, the handiwork of Nudimmud, skillfully made for the separation of metals. This they used to sort each kind, carrying them ashore in neat shimmering piles. 6 more days they toiled thus, and on the 7th they rested, accounting their harvest. There was iron and copper and other metals of earth. But the gold was a pitiful pile, smaller than a single warrior's clasp. Overhead the moon traced its strange dance through the heavens. Ea watched it with growing fascination. At its first sliver, its luminous horns marked 6 days. At half round it signaled the 7th day, a day for rest. At fullness it paused, and then diminished again. Its cycle he called month, naming each part as though placing a seal upon a new discovery. 2 months they labored, and Ea observed also the sun's journey, marking Earth's turning from winter to summer, the seasons dividing themselves by the sun's path. The full turning of these he named year. When the year was ended, they counted the gold. There was not enough to send to Nibiru. Ea's voice was steady, but held the weight of failure. The swampland's waters are deficient. Let the chariot be moved to the deeper ocean. The chariot's moorings were loosed. They sailed back over marsh and river until the deep salt waters lay beneath them. Once more the crystal vessels drank, the salt water rushing through their luminous throats. Again the metals were separated, and this time, among the heaps, the gold gleamed brighter. From the chariot, Ea sent word to Nibiru. Anu received it with pleasure, for Nibiru, in its destined course, was drawing near the sun's abode. On its great Shar circuit, it was coming close to Earth again. With eagerness, Anu's voice came across the void. "Is there enough for sending to Nibiru?" Ea's reply was measured. "Alas, not enough. Let another Shah pass, and the quantity be doubled." The work continued. Day after day the ocean's waters yielded their metals, but still Ea felt a knot of unease. From the chariot, parts were removed and set aside. From these, Ea fashioned a sky chamber, a swift craft for the heavens. To Abgal, skilled in the ways of flight, he gave charge of it. Together they soared, seeking knowledge. Over mountains crowned with snow they flew, over wide valleys with rivers like silver serpents, over forests so vast they seemed without end. They crossed steppes and plains, charting lands separated by oceans. With the beam that scans, they pierced the soils, seeking the hidden veins of gold. Yet the calls from Nibiru grew sharper. Can gold protection provide? The voices cried. Assemble the gold. On Nibiru's nearing, gold you must deliver. Anu's command was clear. Repair Alalu's chariot. Make it ready for the Shah's completion. Ea obeyed, but in his heart he resolved upon a secret act. One moonless night, when the sky chamber was landed beside the chariot, Ea and Abgal entered Alalu's vessel. In the shadows they removed the 7 weapons of terror, relics of terrible power, and carried them to the sky chamber. They flew far to a secret place where Ea hid the weapons deep in a cave known to none. At sunrise, repairs began. Anzu, skilled beyond all others in the ways of chariots, discovered the weapons' absence. His voice thundered with anger. Without them, no passage through the hammered bracelet is safe. Ea's voice was unshaken. Forsworn is the weapon's use. Neither in the heavens nor upon the firm lands shall they be harnessed. Alalu, commander of Eridu, lent his support. The words of Ea are attested by the Council of Nibiru. But without the chariot's return, Anzu warned, Nibiru shall be doomed. Then Abgal stepped forward, his voice steady and resolute. I shall be the pilot. The dangers I shall face valiantly. So it was decided Abgal would take the chariot, Anzu would remain upon earth. From Nibiru, the stargazers read the destinies of the celestial gods, selecting an opportune day. Basketfuls of gold were carried into Alalu's chariot. Abgal entered the forepart, taking the commander's seat. Ea approached with a tablet of destiny in his hands. It shall be that which shows the way, Ea told him. By it the open pathway you shall find. The firestones roared to life, their hum like music that set the air trembling. The great cracker blazed with reddish brilliance. Ea and Alalu stood among the assembled heroes, their eyes following the chariot's ascent. With a roar like the voice of the deep, it rose heavenward, trailing fire. Across the void, the news of its flight was beamed to Nibiru, and on Nibiru they waited, their hope heavy in the balance. The 4th tablet, the gold that gives life. The void between worlds was a silent ocean, and through it the chariot of Alalu surged homeward. Signals beamed from its heart, sped ahead across the black gulf to Nibiru. The words of its ascent had been sent, and on Nibiru there was much expecting. The halls of the palace thrummed with tense anticipation, and the streets were filled with whispers. In the commander's seat sat Abgal, his eyes fixed on the glowing tablets before him, his hands steady on the controls. Confidence radiated from him. He had guided chariots through peril before, but never with a burden so precious as this. Around Kingu, the moon of Earth, he made a measured circuit, harnessing its net power to gain speed. The gray sphere glided silently past the viewing crystal, its barren face aglow with reflected sunlight. From there he flung the chariot outward, 1,000 leagues, 10,000 leagues toward Lamu, the red wanderer. At Lamu too, the chariot dipped close, drinking of its net power, turning its flight toward the homeworld. Beyond Lamu's path, the hammered bracelet, the deadly swarm of shattered rock and ice, churned in endless whirling. There, deftly, Abgal brought Ea's crystals to life. Their blue-white glow pulsed across the control panels, reading the hidden ways through the raging swarm. Gates of fate opened before him. The eye of destiny, the favor of the celestial gods, looked kindly upon his passage. Beyond the bracelet's dangers, the chariot caught the beamed signals of Nibiru. The voice of home called to him, homeward, homeward. Ahead, in the darkness, a reddish gleam emerged, faint at first, then swelling until it bathed the viewing crystal in its glow. Nibiru, The sight made his breath catch. Thrice around the great planet the chariot wheeled, slowing its vast momentum with the pull of Nibiru's net force. Now the great sphere filled the heavens before him, its breached atmosphere shimmering like a wound in the sky. A squeezing took hold of Abgal's heart. He thought of the gold he carried, of the salvation it might bring. Through the thickness of the atmosphere the chariot plunged, its skin aglow with searing heat. The firestones roared beneath him, the sound filling his bones. Deftly he spread the vessel's mighty wings, catching the air, easing the descent. Beyond the final cloud layers, the place of the chariots lay open before him, its landing ways gleaming in the sun. Gently, as one sets down a newborn child, Abgal brought the chariot to rest where the guiding beams had called it. The hatch opened. A rush of warm air struck him, and with it came a roar of voices. A multitude had gathered, their faces turned upward. At their head strode Anu, king of Nibiru. His eyes shone as he stepped forward, arms outstretched. Abgal descended the ramp, and the two clasped forearms in the warrior's greeting, speaking warm words to each other. Heroes surged into the chariot, emerging moments later bearing baskets heavy with gold. High above their heads they lifted them, and to the crowd Anu called in a voice like a clarion, "Salvation is here!" The words rolled across the assembly like thunder. Cries of joy answered him. Abgal was escorted to the palace to rest and tell all. The gold, dazzling under Nibiru's light, was taken swiftly by the savants. Into the furnaces it went to be made into the finest dust. Ashar, a full Nibiru year, the fashioning lasted. Ashar, the testing continued. The golden dust was loaded into rockets carried skyward, and by beams of crystal it was scattered across the heavens. Where the breach had been, there was now a healing veil. Joy filled the palace, abundance was expected throughout the land. Anu sent bright words to earth. Gold gives salvation. The obtaining of gold do continue. But joy was not to last. When Nibiru neared the sun, the golden dust was disturbed by its rays. The healing waned, the breach widened. The message from the palace was heavy with urgency. Abgal must return to earth. More gold was needed, more heroes would go with him, and more devices for drawing water would be sent. When Abgal returned to Eridu, there was much rejoicing. Arms were locked, greetings exchanged. Ea examined the new water workings with care. On his lips there was a smile, in his heart there was a squeezing. When Shar time came again, Nungol, Abgal's pilot helper, prepared to depart. The chariot's cargo was small, only a few baskets of gold. Ea's heart told him the disappointment on Nibiru would be great. So Ea and Alalu spoke together, reconsidering all that was known. If Earth was once the head of Tiamat struck off in the celestial battle, then where was the neck? Where were the golden veins that had been torn asunder? From the chariot, Ea took the sky chamber and soared with Abgal. Over mountains and valleys they flew, scanning the lands. Again and again the same truth appeared. Where dry land had been rent from dry land, Earth's innards were exposed. In a land shaped like a heart, in its lower part, golden veins were rich and deep. Ea named it Abzu, birthplace of gold. To Anu he sent words of wisdom. With gold earth is filled. Not from the waters, but from the veins must it be obtained. From the bowels of earth, beyond the ocean, in the Abzu there is abundance. In the palace of Nibiru there was astonishment. Savants and counselors agreed that the gold must be gotten, but how to take it from the earth's innards was a matter of much debate. From the assembly, a prince rose to speak. Enlil, half-brother of Ea. He spoke sharply. First Alalu, then Ea, placed all hope upon the waters. Shar after Shar we awaited salvation from this. Now we hear different words, a task beyond imagining. Proof of these golden veins is needed, and a plan for success must be made. Anu decreed, let Enlil go to earth. Let him obtain proof and a plan he shall put forward. His word shall be the command. The assembly agreed. With Alaugar, his chief lieutenant and pilot, Enlil departed for earth, each in a sky chamber. When he arrived, Ea greeted him warmly, locking arms as a brother with a brother. To Alalu he bowed. Alalu's voice was weak, his welcome muted. The heroes hailed Enlil with shouts, eager for his leadership. Swiftly he ordered the sky chambers assembled. In one, with Alaugar, he soared over the lands. Ea, with Abgal as pilot, guided them toward the Abzu. They scanned from upper sea to lower sea, marking every land, every sea. In the Abzu, they tested the soil. Gold there was indeed, but mingled with much rock and soil, unlike the refined particles in the waters. Returning to Eridu, they considered their findings. Enlil declared, Eridu alone cannot continue. More heroes must come, more settlements be made. The gold from the innards we must take, the admixture we must refine, the sky ships and chariots must bear it home. The question arose, who shall command these settlements? Who shall oversee the Abzu? Who shall command the landing place? Enlil's answer was simple, let Anu come to earth. Let him decide. The coming of Anu and the casting of lots. A novelization of the account. Beneath the silent wheeling of the heavens, Anu's chariot came. It glided on beams of power between the wandering planets, tracing the ancient route the kings before him had taken. Star after star slid past the viewing port until the ochre glow of Lamu, Mars, filled the chariot's front window. Nungal, master pilot of the royal ship, held her in a wide arc about the rusted sphere. Every turn, every adjustment of thrusters was under Anu's watchful eye. The king studied Lamu as one might a battlefield or a treasury, calculating, measuring, wondering. The king's gaze was drawn to its red, barren stretches. Perchance gold thereon can also be found? The thought rippled silently in his mind. If such treasure lay there, it could serve as a way station between Earth and Nibiru, an outpost for the ages. Beyond Lamu, the moon rose in their path. Kingu, the captive wanderer, once a planet in its own right before the great celestial battle. They circled the cratered sphere, the light of the sun playing along its ragged horizon. Anu allowed himself a breath of admiration at its stark beauty. At last the chariot descended toward Earth. Its shining hull sliced through the upper airs until it splashed down beside the green-brown marshlands. The waters frothed about it. Waiting there, drawn up upon the rush-lined shore, were the reed boats Ea had prepared for his father's arrival. Above them, the sky chambers hovered like silver hawks, their hulls catching the sun, each one a sentinel and a signal of royal welcome. In the lead boat stood Ea himself, steady and tall, the marsh reeds swaying behind him. His eyes sought the hatch of the chariot the moment it hissed open. When Anu emerged, the firstborn bowed low before the father king. Anu stepped forward and clasped him in a fierce embrace. "My son, my firstborn!" Anu's voice carried over the waters, rich and unrestrained. Upon the square of Eridu, the heroes stood in ordered ranks. They were armored in shining metals, their faces bright with expectation. At their head was Enlil, commander of all operations. He bowed before the king and was gathered into the same deep embrace. Apart from them, Alalu waited, shifting his weight from one foot to another, uncertain whether to step forward or remain in place. His eyes, once fierce, were watchful now, measuring the moment. Anu turned to him and with deliberate warmth extended his arm. "Let us lock arms as comrades," the king said. Hesitation trembled through Alalu's body, but at last he stepped forward. The old rival and the king grasped each other's forearms. That evening, a meal of the finest gathered fruits, fish, and roasted fowl was set before the king in a reed hut Ea had built for him by the water's edge. By the count of days Ea had begun, it was the seventh day, a day of rest, a day of backslapping and feasting, as befitted the arrival of the ruler of Nibiru. The coming of Anu continued. At dawn, the camp stirred to the sound of horns. The king's arrival had set in motion the solemn matter for which he had come, the judgment between himself and Alalu. They assembled upon the flat ground beyond the reed huts. The air shimmered in the early heat. Above, the banners of Nibiru's royal emblem hung still. Enlil, the strict commander, spoke the first formal words. According to our laws, none shall decide the fate of kings and claimants, but the trial of strength before the gathered host. Murmurs rippled through the crowd of Anunnaki. They knew this contest was no friendly sport. It was the ancient way of settling the highest dispute, as it had been in ages past. Anu stepped forward, his frame broad, his eyes burning with the unshaken confidence of a ruler. Alalu came opposite him, the former king whose hands had once held Nibiru's crown. His jaw was set, his pride unbent. They stripped to the waist and clasped each other's shoulders. The circle of warriors closed about them, voices raised in the rhythmic chant that called upon the gods to witness. The trial began. At first they grappled in silence, each testing the other's balance, shifting feet upon the packed earth. Then came the sudden surge. Anu drove forward, his weight pressing into Alalu's frame. The former king twisted aside, and for a moment the onlookers cried out in surprise as he nearly toppled Anu. But the king held fast. He lowered his stance, gripped Alalu about the waist, and in a single mighty heave, lifted him clear from the ground. Dust rose in a golden cloud as Alalu crashed to the earth. The chants grew thunderous. Anu, Anu, Anu! The second fall came quicker. Anu's strength was unrelenting. By the laws of their people, the third fall would decide it. Alalu, panting, knew it. His arms trembled, his eyes burned with something deeper than exertion. Anu came in close. Their bodies locked again, one final struggle, and with the inevitability of the turning heavens, Alalu fell a third time. Silence held for a breath, then the warriors roared, "The kingship is secured! Anu is king!" Enlil stepped forward to speak the verdict aloud. "By the law of our people, the lots shall be cast for the fates of Enlil and Ea." From a finely carved chest were drawn the sacred tokens. One bore the mark of the command over earth and the mission upon it. The other bore the mark of the waters and their mastery. Anu's hand reached into the chest. He drew the first lot and handed it to Enlil. It was the token of command. Ea's was the lot of the waters. Thus was the division made: Enlil to oversee the lands and skyways, Ea to govern the seas, rivers, and all that flowed within them. It was then that Anu, in honor of his firstborn, granted him a new name. Let Ea be called Enki, Lord of the earth's waters. The assembly bowed in acknowledgement, but in Alalu's heart rage and humiliation boiled. As the feasting resumed, his eyes followed Anu with a gaze that could cut stone. He drank deeply, but the wine did not soothe him. When the moon had risen and the camp lay half asleep, Alalu entered the hut where Anu rested. No challenge was spoken this time. He struck swiftly, forcing the king down, and in an act both savage and unthinkable, he bit from Anu the very organ of manhood. The king's cry split the night. Guards rushed in, but Alalu had already spat the bloody prize before them. Horror rippled through the camp. Such a thing had never been done in the history of their people. Anu was borne away to be tended. Alalu was seized and bound, his fate uncertain. The laws of Nibiru had no precedent for such a crime. Thus ended the day of Anu's triumph and began the dark shadow that would haunt the mission on earth, the judging of Alalu, a novelized chronicle. The day of judgment had come. The air over Eridu was heavy with heat, the scent of the marshlands clinging to the wind that swept through the settlement's reed-woven streets. In the hut of reeds prepared for the king, Anu lay upon his couch. Though his wounds had closed, the hurt ran deeper than flesh. His body had been restored by Enki's skillful tending, but his pride was raw and aching like a wound that could not be bound. Across the settlement, in another reed hut, Alalu sat alone, his jaw clenched, and from his lips he spat bitterly upon the rush-covered floor. Deep within him, what he had swallowed now churned and weighed upon him. It was more than flesh. It was the king's very seed, the symbol and future of Anu's line. Now that seed lay within him, an alien burden in his belly. His insides swelled as though he were a woman in travail, the slow agony of it twisting his every breath. 3 days passed thus. On the 3rd day, the sharpness of Anu's pain began to ebb, though his pride was far from healed. When at last he rose from his bed, he called for his sons, his voice still stern despite the weariness in it. To Nibiru I wish to return, Anu said. But before we depart, judgment must be passed upon Alalu. His crime demands a sentence befitting its weight. By the laws of Nibiru, there could be no hasty decision. 7 judges must be chosen, the highest in rank among them presiding. So it was proclaimed, and word spread quickly among the gathered Anunnaki in the square of Eridu. The trial of Alalu would be held, and all might witness it. The square was made ready. Upon the packed earth, 7 seats were set in a half circle. For the presiding seat, Anu's was raised highest, carved from timber and set with worked metal, a throne among judges' chairs. To Anu's right sat Enki, the firstborn son, master of the earth's waters. To his left, Enlil, lord of command. Beside Enki sat Anzu, the warrior, and Nungol, the trusted pilot. Beside Enlil sat Abgal, the captain of the waters, and Alalgar, the steadfast commander. The assembly of heroes filled the square, their voices a low murmur as Alalu was brought forth. His hands and feet were unbound, that he might stand upright before the 7 who judge. Enlil's voice rang first, sharp and clear. In fairness was the wrestling match held. Alalu, you were vanquished, and the kingship to Anu you forfeited. What say you to this? Enki turned to him, his tone less harsh but no less firm. What say you, Alalu? The old king lifted his head and spoke in a steady voice. In fairness, the wrestling match was held. The kingship I forfeited. Enlil's expression hardened. Having been vanquished, you performed an abominable crime. You bit and swallowed the malehood of the king. Such a thing has no precedent. Death is the punishment. Again Enki addressed him, his voice edged now with grief. What say you, Alalu? But Alalu was silent. Alalgar stepped forward, his hand lifted toward the sky as witness. We all saw the deed. Judgment must be in accordance with the law. Enki gave him a final chance. If words you wish to utter, speak them now before the judging. The square fell silent. Slowly Alalu began to speak, not in defense, but in the voice of one recounting the bitter weight of years. On Nibiru I was king. By right of succession did I reign. Anu was my cupbearer. But the princes he aroused, and to a wrestling he challenged me. For 9 counted Shars I ruled. The throne by seed and law was mine. Then Anu sat upon my seat, and to escape death I fled to this distant earth, making a dangerous journey. Here salvation for Nibiru I found. Return was promised me, and with it the throne. But Ea came, and by compromise he was named next to reign. Enlil came and claimed succession for himself. Then Anu came, and by lots he tricked Ea. Ea was proclaimed lord of earth, but not of Nibiru. Enlil was given command. Ea was sent to the Abzu. My heart ached, my chest burned with shame. And then Anu placed his foot upon my chest. He trod upon my very heart, and so I struck. A hush followed. Then Anu himself spoke, his tone cutting through the air. By royal seed and law, by fair wrestling I gained the throne, but you bit and swallowed my malehood, my seed, my line, my future. You sought to end my offspring forever. Enlil's voice was quick to follow. The accused has admitted the crime. Let the judgment come. Let death be the punishment. And one by one the judges gave their voices. Death, said Alalgar. Death, said Abgal. Death, said Nungol. But Enki shook his head. Death will come to him in its own time. The thing he swallowed will kill him from within. Anzu spoke. Then let him live out his days imprisoned upon earth. Anu sat in silence, the weight of both anger and pity pressing upon him. At last he raised his head and spoke in a voice all could hear. Let him die in exile. That is my judgment. The judges exchanged glances of surprise. But Anu went on, neither upon earth nor upon Nibiru shall he be cast. There is Lahmu, the red planet with waters and a thin air. Ea, as first arriver, paused there once, and thought of it as a way station. Thither shall Alalu be taken. His words fell with the solemnity of stone. All agreed. The judgment was unanimous. In the presence of all the heroes, it was proclaimed Alalu would be taken to Lamu to live alone until his final day, his life counted out by the turning of the skies. On the morrow, preparations were made. The chariot stood ready, gleaming in the sun. Anu limped aboard, his gait still slowed by his wound. Alalu entered with his hands bound. Farewells were spoken, some with joy, others with sorrow. The chariot rose to the heavens, circling the moon, whose stark face filled Anu with quiet wonder. Then onward to Lamu they flew, twice circling the planet before drawing near its surface. Mountains like spears rose to meet them, and great rents scarred the ground. By the lakeside where Ea had once landed, they slowed. The sky chamber was prepared for descent, Anzu at its helm. But then the warrior turned to the king with unexpected words. With Alalu to the soil of Lahmu I shall descend. I will not return to the chariot. I will remain with him until he dies. And when death comes, I shall bury him as befits a king. Thus will my name be remembered, Anzu, who kept faith with a fallen king, who saw what none else saw upon a strange planet, who faced the unknown and fell like a hero. Tears filled Alalu's eyes. Wonder filled Anu's heart. The king swore by his raised hand, when next the chariot comes by Lamu, if it finds you alive, you shall be proclaimed master of the planet and commander of its station. Anzu bowed. So be it, he said. They donned eagles' helmets and fishes' suits. They took food and tools. The sky chamber separated, descending toward the lonely lakeside, until it was lost from sight. The chariot turned and sped toward distant Nibiru. For 9 Shahs Alalu had ruled Nibiru. For 8 he had commanded in Eridu. In the 9th Shah he met his fate, exiled to die alone upon Lahmu. The return of Anu, the burial of Alu, and the building of the landing place. A chronicle told in the tongue of kings and heroes, the golden gleam of Nibiru's skies welcomed its king home. The air, shimmering with the light of its central fire, sang faintly in the ears of those awaiting his return. Long before Anu's chariot broke through the high firmament, the people had gathered in their multitudes, warriors, savants, laborers, and the royal court alike, filling the plazas before the palace of the great council. When the shining vessel descended, its hull reflecting the copper gold of the heavens, the throng raised their voices in a roar that shook the marble colonnades. Anu emerged at last, limping slightly, but standing tall with the dignity of a ruler who had crossed the abyss between worlds. In the council chamber, before the gathered princes and counselors, Anu gave account of all that had transpired, of his descent to earth, the judgment upon Alalu, the journey to Lamu, and the fate of the exile. His words were plain, his voice heavy with the weight of kingship. Neither pity did he beg, nor vengeance did he stir. He sought from them only wisdom for what lay ahead. Then, rising from his seat as though lifted by the hand of destiny, Anu unfurled before them a vision so vast the chamber seemed too small to contain it. Way stations, he proclaimed, from Nibiru to earth shall we fashion. All the sun's family shall be bound in one kingdom under the royal seal. Lamu shall be first, the moon also to be considered, and beyond, yes, other planets and their circling hosts, stations to feed the fleets, to guard the routes, a chain unbroken, a caravan eternal, carrying the gold of earth without cease to Nibiru. And perhaps, who can say, gold may yet be found elsewhere. The murmurs of the gathered swelled like the sound of distant surf. The counselors leaned toward one another. The princes straightened with renewed pride, and the savants' eyes gleamed with the hunger of discovery. In Anu's vision, they saw the salvation of Nibiru, and in their hearts, they marked it as possible. Savants and commanders perfected their charts of the celestial gods, plotting the courses and the paths of return. To the fleets were added new vessels, rocket ships swifter than the old, sky ships lighter yet strong, and new craft of the kind Enki himself had designed in the Abzu's shadow. From the Hall of Records, the plans were beamed across the void to Enki and Enlil on earth. Preparations must be hastened. In the lands of earth, in Eridu, Enki summoned Alaugar to him. "You shall be overseer here," the Lord of the Waters said, "while I return to the Abzu. Gold I must wrest from the deep places of the earth." He walked the length of the Abzu's hills, studying their bones, calculating the heroes and the tools he would need. From the depths of his mind rose new machines, the earth splitter to cut gashes deep into the rock, that which crunches and that which crushes, mighty devices to chew the stone and grind the ores. These he sent in request to Nibiru, for they could not yet be made on earth. But other matters pressed upon him, the health of the heroes. Earth's days and nights spun too quickly for Nibiru's children. Their stomachs turned, their heads swam. The air, though good, was strange, too rich in some parts, lacking in others. The sameness of their food dulled their spirits, and Lil, meanwhile, scoured the Eden from his skyship. The sun's heat oppressed him, and he longed for cool winds and shade. At last his eyes lit upon the mountains to the north, their peaks mantled in snow, their valleys dark with cedar forests whose trunks were tall beyond imagining. There, above a broad valley, he leveled the ground with the power beams of his craft. Heroes quarried stone from the mountainside, cutting each block to perfect size, lifting them into place with skyships until the platform rose from the earth like the work of gods. "This shall be the landing place," Enlil declared, "for the chariots of heaven to touch the soil of earth. On the mountain crest itself he decreed his dwelling be built, an abode of cedar beams, hewn from the forest, the air around it filled with the scent of resin and cool wind." Enma's mission. On Nibiru, the great work continued. A new celestial chariot was prepared, its belly laden with rocket ships and skyships, and the mighty devices Enki had designed. Among his 50 chosen passengers were women, trained in healing, versed in the art of succor. At their head stood Ninma, the exalted lady, daughter of Anu, half-sister to Enki and Enlil. Wise in the tending of the sick, skilled in herbs and instruments, she had listened to the complaints from earth and prepared remedies for them. The course to Lamu was plotted by Nungal, master pilot, following the etched records upon the tablets of destinies. The chariot swept through the heavens unharmed, descended into the orbit of the red planet, and began its slow spiral toward the surface. From the cabin, Ninma watched the lakes and plains of Lamu draw near. A faint beaming signal pulsed across the instruments, Anzu's beacon. They found him by the shore of a lake, his form motionless in the dust. Ninma knelt beside him, fingers brushing his cheek, ear bent to his still heart. From her pouch she drew forth the pulsar and pressed it to his chest. Once, twice, 60 times she sent its life rhythm into him. Then she took the emitter, bathing his body in the crystal light of renewal. On the 60th time, Anzu's eyes fluttered open, his lips moved without sound. Ninma poured upon them the water of life, then placed within his mouth the food of life. Breath returned. His chest rose. Anzu lived. The burial of Alalu. When Ninma asked of Alalu, Anzu's gaze darkened. He led them across the plain to a rock that rose like a mountain's crown. There, he told them, Alalu had screamed in his agony, spitting out the poison of Anu's seed until death took him. In the rockside he had found a cave. There he had laid the corpse of the king who once ruled Nibiru, sealing the entrance with heavy stones. The heroes removed the stones, and there they beheld the remains, only bones now, but once the flesh of a king. Ninma stood in the cave's mouth, her voice solemn. For the first time in the annals, a king has died, not on Nibiru, and not on Nibiru is he buried. Let him rest in peace for eternity. They sealed the cave once more. Upon the face of the great rock they carved his likeness, wearing the eagle's helmet, his face bare, forever gazing toward Nibiru, and toward earth whose gold he had discovered, the station of Lakmu. In the name of Anu, Ninmah turned to Anzu. As for you, Anu's promise shall be kept. 20 heroes shall remain with you. Begin the building of the way station. From earth golden ores shall be brought here. From here chariots shall carry them to Nibiru. Hundreds will one day dwell here, and you shall be their commander. Anzu bowed. My life I owe to you, great lady. My gratitude to Anu shall have no bounds. The chariot departed from Lafmu, leaving Anzu and his men in the red silence. Toward earth it sped, the work of kings and gods still unfolding. The fifth tablet, the arrival of Ninmah, and the rise of earth's cities. From the red sands of Lafmu, the great chariot departed once more, its glowing hull slicing through the heavens, bearing Ninmah and her chosen band of healers. Their journey continued, circling the pale moon, a celestial way station looming in silent vigil. With cautious spirals, the chariot swept in a great arc around Earth itself, its course slowing, readying for descent. Beneath the shimmering clouds and rippling seas, Eridu awaited, a city of stone and water, wrought by hands of gods and heroes. Nungol, the pilot, steadfast and sure, guided the celestial craft downward. Their landing was smooth, the chariot settling beside a quay fashioned by Enlil's own command, no longer needing boats to ferry heroes from sky to shore. The ramp lowered, and one by one, gods and heroes stepped forth, their faces alight with purpose. Enlil and Enki met their sister Ninmah with embraces deep as ancient roots, while Nungol's steady hand joined theirs in bond. The air filled with shouts of joy and greetings from heroes both new and old. Soon, the chariot's belly was emptied. Rocket ships and sky ships, tools designed by Enki's cunning mind, and provisions enough for a host of years. Ninmah stood before her brothers, her voice calm but strong as she told them of Nibiru, of the death and burial of Alalu, her words carrying the weight of finality. She spoke also of Lamu, the way station, and the command of Anzu. Enki nodded his approval, while Enlil, perplexed, murmured his doubts. That is Anu's decision, Ninmah reminded him, her gaze steady. His word is unalterable. Then with a small pouch she produced a bag of seeds, precious and strange. For relief from your ailments, Ninmah explained, these seeds must be sown. From them shall sprout bushes heavy with juicy fruit. The juice, an elixir for heroes' hearts and bodies, shall chase away your maladies and brighten your mood. But the seeds demand a cool place, and warmth and water to flourish. And Lil, ever the commander, considered her words. The place for this is where I built the landing place, he said, voice low but certain. Where the cedar woods grow thick, there the seeds will thrive. He took Ninmah by the hand, and together they ascended in Enlil's skyship, soaring toward the snow-capped mountains beyond the cedar forest. The skyship settled on the great stone platform, the landing place hewn from mountain and magic. They descended to the abode Enlil had built, a fortress of cedar beams and cold mountain air. Within the dwelling, Enlil embraced Ninmah fiercely. "Oh, my sister, my beloved," he whispered, his hands clutching her tightly. "I desire you deeply." Yet he did not yield to passion fully. No seed was planted this day in her womb. Instead, Ninmah's voice softened as she spoke. "Of our son Ninurta I bring word. A young prince, bold and ready for adventure, prepared now to join you on earth." Enlil smiled at the promise of his son. "If you remain here, let us bring him forth," he said. Around them, heroes arrived, their rocket ships and sky ships lifting onto the platform. From Ninmah's pouch, the seeds were scattered in the fertile valley below, planting a fruit of Nibiru in the soil of earth. The skyship bore them back to Eridu, and as they traveled, Enlil pointed out the vastness of the Eden below, its mountains, rivers, and plains spreading like a tapestry of promise. "I have designed a plan everlasting," Enlil declared, "a plan to build cities that will endure through the ages. Far from Eridu, where the dry land stretches, I shall establish my quarters, Lhasa, It shall be called a place of command and direction. On the banks of the Buranu, the river of deep waters, I will raise it. A twin city shall rise as well, named Lagash. Between these two, a line I have drawn, 60 leagues in length, along which a healing city will grow. Shurubak shall be its name, the haven city, my own abode. At the center line, I will build a city to bind heaven and earth, Nibruki, the earth's crossing place. Here shall the tablets of destinies reside. Here shall all missions be controlled. Eridu in these 5 cities shall be counted, lasting to eternity. Ninmah studied the crystal tablet Enlil held, the intricate markings glowing faintly under the light. "What are these signs beyond the 5 cities?" she asked. Enlil smiled, pride bright in his eyes. "A chariot place from which one may arrive directly from Nibiru to earth, a final marvel." Ninmah's heart swelled with admiration. "My brother, your plan is magnificent," she said. "The creation of Shurubak, a city of healing, a refuge for your own, is a blessing indeed. But beyond that, tread carefully. Do not transgress the will of our father, nor offend your brother." Enlil laughed softly. "Wise and beautiful," he said. "You are both." Meanwhile, Enki, in the shadowy depths of the Abzu, conceived his own grand designs. In his skyship, he surveyed the lands beyond the Eden, the rich, bursting fullness of the Abzu, with its rushing rivers and fertile plains. There, beside the flowing waters, Enki chose to establish his abode, a sanctuary for the heroes who would delve into Earth's bowels in search of treasure. He set the Earth splitter in place, a mighty machine to carve great gashes in the rock, reaching the veins of gold hidden deep beneath the surface. Nearby, that which crunches and that which crushes awaited, ready to pulverize the gold-bearing ores to dust, to be lifted by sky ships and transported to the landing place in the Cedar Mountains. From there, the gold would be carried by rocket ships to Lahmu and thence to Nibiru, the precious metal flowing like a river between worlds. Heroes continued to arrive on Earth. Some were sent to the Aden, others to the Abzu. Lhasa and Lagash rose beneath Enlil's command. Shurubak was founded for Ninmah, where a host of young female healers dwelled, ready to give succor and care. At Nibruki, Enlil assembled a bond heaven-earth, a seat of power to oversee all missions. Between Eridu and the Abzu, Enki moved ceaselessly, supervising and directing with tireless will. On Lahmu, the way station took shape. Heroes gathered under the proud command of Anzu. For 1 Shar, then 2, preparations stretched until the day was decreed, the 7th day, a day of rest by Enki's command, the beginning of peace for the weary heroes. On that day, the heroes gathered at every station, in the Eden with Enlil, in the Abzu with Enki, on Lahmu with Anzu. 600 were assembled on earth, 300 stood watch on Lahmu, 900 in all, 900 heroes of Nibiru. Anu's voice echoed across the skies, beaming a message of power and promise. Heroes, you are the saviors of Nibiru. The fate of all rests in your hands. Your success shall be remembered for eternity, your name sung by the stars. Those who dwell on earth shall be called the Anunnaki, those who came from heaven to earth. Those who remain on Lahmu shall be named the Ijiji, those who observe and see, all is ready. Let the gold flow, let Nibiru be saved. Thus the stage was set, the eternal saga of gods and men, of earth and sky, of destiny woven between stars began anew. The tale of Enki, Enlil, and Ninmah loves, espousals, and rivalries. Now this is the solemn account of Enki and Enlil and Ninmah, their loves, their espousals, and through their sons, the rivalries that would forever shape the fate of worlds. 3 offspring of Anu, the great king of the heavens, they were, each born to a different mother. Enki, the firstborn son, came forth from a concubine of Anu, her name lost in the dust of ages. He was Ea, the wise, the lord of the deep waters. Enlil, the legal heir, was born of Antu, the revered spouse of Anu, rightful firstborn of the queen, the heir to the throne. Ninmah, the firstborn daughter of Anu, was mothered by another concubine, a half-sister to the two half-brothers. Her name itself was a title, Ninmah, the exalted lady, beautiful beyond measure, full of wisdom, sharp of mind, and quick to learn. To Enki, Anu entrusted the bride to espouse Ninmah, that their son might become the rightful heir after him. Yet the threads of fate twisted as Ninmah found herself enamored not with Enki, but with Enlil, the dashing commander, fierce and proud. In the cool shadow of the cedar forest, where the breeze whispered secrets among the trees, Ninmah and Enlil met. He seduced her with fervent words and fiery eyes. He poured his seed into her womb. A son was conceived, Ninurta, the warrior prince, the firstborn of their forbidden union. But Anu's anger was fierce. Such a deed was an affront to the sacred law. By this deed, Anu decreed, Ninmah shall never be a spouse. And so, by Anu's command, Ea, the bride chosen for Ninmah, was forsaken. Instead, Enki was given a princess named Damkina, royal and pure, to be his wife. From Damkina and Enki was born Marduk, the heir born in a pure place, destined for greatness. As for Enlil, no spouse did he have upon Nibiru. His path to wedlock would be far different and far darker. It was upon earth, not Nibiru, that Enlil's espousal would come to pass, a tale of passion, violation, exile, and forgiveness. The summer sun shone hot, a golden glare upon the vast cedars of the forest where Enlil had made his abode. There, in the cool mountain streams beside the landing place, some of Ninmah's young ones, female healers sent to serve the mission, bathed, their laughter like soft bells in the shade. Among them was Sud, a maiden of grace and beauty so profound it stirred Enlil's heart and soul. Enlil, moved beyond reason, invited her to a cedarwood dwelling. "Come," he said, voice soft and commanding, "partake with me in the elixir of Nibiru's fruit that grows here." Sud entered, hesitating but curious. Enlil presented the cup, the elixir shimmering with golden hues. She drank, he drank beside her. Then Enlil spoke of union, of joining in flesh and spirit. But Sud, trembling, resisted. "My vagina is too little, it knows not copulation," she whispered, eyes downcast. Enlil sought to soften her with kisses, but again Sud denied him. "My lips are too small, they know not kissing." Yet Enlil laughed, a sound both tender and wild, and embraced her with fierce devotion. With love and hunger he kissed her, and in a moment that changed all, he poured his seed into her womb. The deed, whispered on the winds, was not without consequence. To Ninmah, Sud's commander, the immoral act was reported with sharp words and anger. "Enlil, immoral one, for your deed judgment you shall face before the gathering of 50 Anunnaki, the 7 who judge assembled, silent, stern, unyielding." The sentence was declared, "Let Enlil be banished from all cities to the land of no return. Exiled he shall be in a sky chamber, a craft wrought of crystalline light." Enlil was taken from the landing place. Abgal, his faithful pilot, guided the journey. Far away beyond forbidding mountains and desolation, the chamber landed. "This shall be your place of exile," Abgal said, voice grave. Enlil's heart tightened in his chest. "Not perchance have I chosen this place." Abgal leaned close, voice dropping to a whisper, revealing a secret. In the nearby cave, 7 weapons of terror lie hidden, removed from the celestial chariot of Alalu by Enki himself. "Take these weapons into your possession, and with them your freedom shall be attained." Then Abgal departed, leaving Enlil alone amid the barren rocks in silence. Meanwhile, back in the Aden, Sud spoke quietly to Ninmah. "By Enlil's seed am I pregnant. A child of Enlil grows in my womb." Ninmah, troubled but pragmatic, conveyed the words to Enki, Lord of earth and supreme among the gods on this strange world. Before the 7 who judged, Sud was summoned. "Will you take Enlil as your spouse?" they asked, voices cold as stone. Sud's answer was clear, "I consent." And so, by the messenger Abgal, the pardon was brought to Enlil in exile. His return was swift, and upon his head was bestowed the title Ninlil, Lady of the Command. Sud was now his official spouse. From their union came a son, Nannar, the Bright One, named by Ninlil herself. He was the first Anunnaki child conceived on earth, a seed of Nibiru born on an alien soil. Afterward, Enki called to Ninmah, "Come be with me in the Abzu. In the midst of pure waters I have built an abode, embellished with bright silver metal, adorned with deep blue lapis lazuli. Come, Ninmah, be with me. Abandon your adoration for Enlil." Moved by his words, Ninmah journeyed to the Abzu, where Enki welcomed her with loving whispers and caresses. "You are still my beloved," he breathed, his hands tracing her curves. Their passion kindled anew. She caused his phallus to water. Enki poured his seed into her womb, crying out, "Give me a son! Give me a son!" Time passed, and one day of Nibiru was as a month on earth for Ninmah. 2 days, 3 days, 4, the months of earth passed while she carried the precious seed. 5, 6, 7, 8 days of motherhood, the count of life itself completed. The 9th day came, and with it, travail. On the banks of the river in the Abzu, a child was born, a daughter. Enki's heart faltered, disappointment washing over him like a dark tide. "Kiss the young one," Ninmah urged. Enki obeyed, turning to his vizier Isamud. "A son I desired, a son by my half-sister I must have." Not long after, again Enki's seed was poured, and Ninmah bore another daughter. A son by you I must have," Enki cried, kissing her once more. But Ninmah, weary of his demands, cursed him. "Whatever food you eat shall be poison in your innards. Your jaw shall ache, your tooth shall pain, your ribs shall throb." Isamud summoned the Anunnaki healers, who pleaded with Ninmah for relief. Enki, raising his arm, swore to distance himself from Ninmah's vulva, sealing the vow with raised hand. One by one, Ninmah removed his ailments, releasing Enki from the curse's grasp. To the Eden, Ninmah returned, never to be espoused again. Anu's command was fulfilled. To earth, Enki summoned his spouse Damkina and their son Marduk. Ninki, Lady of Earth, was her title granted. By her and by concubines, Enki fathered 5 more sons, Nergal and Jibal, Ninagal and Ningishida, and Dumuzi, the youngest of all. To earth, Enlil and Ninmah summoned their son Ninurta, the warrior born of forbidden love. By his spouse, Ninlil, Enlil fathered another son, a full brother to Nannar, Ishkur the Storm Lord. 3 sons in all did Enlil have, none born by concubines. Thus 2 great clans formed on earth, their rivalry sparking fires that would blaze into war. So ends the account of Enki and Enlil and Ninmah, their loves and espousals, and the rivalries born by their sons, the saga of gods and men, of blood and power, of betrayal and forgiveness had only just begun. The mutiny of the Ijiji and the fall of Anzu, from the shimmering heights of the planet Lamu, the celestial chariots departed bearing precious cargo toward earth, the chariot's path weaving silently through the void. Beneath the pale glow of the moon they made circuits, gliding by the ancient way station with practiced ease. Around the earth they circled, slowing their descent, preparing for the splashdown in the waters near Eridu. There, Nungal, master pilot of the chariot, brought the craft down to rest upon a quay wrought by the hands of Enlil himself, a quay where boats were no longer needed. With arms linked and hearts soaring, Enlil and Enki greeted their sister Ninmah as Nungal stepped from the chariot's hold. The air was thick with joy and relief. The heroes, both male and female, acclaimed by shouts and cheers. From the chariot's belly, rocket ships and sky ships, crafted by Enki's genius, were unloaded with reverent care. Tools of wondrous design, provisions for the long labor ahead, all laid before them like treasures of the gods. And amidst the unloading, Ninmah's voice rose to recount. Of the death and burial of Alalu on Nibiru, I have told my brothers. Of the way station on Lamu, and of the command given by Anzu, I have related. Enki's eyes shone with approval, but Enlil's voice trembled with bewilderment. "This is Anu's decision," Ninmah told him firmly. "His word is unalterable." She reached into her pouch, producing a small bag of seeds. "Precious and potent. For relief from maladies I have brought these," she said softly. "From these seeds, bushes would sprout, yielding juicy fruit, an elixir for the heroes to drink, to chase away ailments, to lift their spirits. In a cool place the seeds must be sown," Ninmah instructed. "With warmth and water they shall grow strong." Enlil nodded, the gleam of a plan in his eyes. "I will show you the place perfect for these seeds," he promised, "where the landing place was fashioned, and where I have built an abode of cedar wood. Together, in Enlil's skyship, brother and sister soared skyward, to the snow-covered mountains, to the cedar forest where the landing place stood. The skyship settled upon a great stone platform, and they entered Enlil's abode. Inside, Enlil embraced Ninmah, his fervor blazing like fire. "Oh, my sister, my beloved," he whispered, gripping her loins, yet held back, his seed not poured within. "Of our son Ninurta I bring word," Ninmah said softly. "A young prince he is, ready for adventure, prepared to join you on earth. If you stay here, let us bring Ninurta to you," Enlil urged. The landing place filled with arriving heroes, rocket ships and skyships docking in measured rhythm. The seeds from Ninmah's pouch were sown in the valley soil, a fruit from Nibiru, destined to grow upon earth. Enlil and Ninmah returned to Eridu, and from the skies, Enlil showed her the vastness of the Eden, his voice weaving plans of permanence and grandeur. "An everlasting plan I have designed," Enlil declared. "Away from Eridu, where dry land begins, my quarters shall rise. Lhasa, a place for direction, a twin city shall arise. Lagash I shall name it. Between them a line I have drawn, and along this line a healing city shall be born. Shurubak, the haven city, your own domain. At the center line, Nibruki shall stand, earth's crossing place. A bond heaven-earth I shall establish. There the tablets of destiny shall rest, controlling all missions. 5 cities shall endure forever." Enlil showed her the master plan upon a crystal tablet, inscriptions glowing beneath her gaze. "Beyond these 5 a chariot place I shall build, a direct path from Nibiru to earth." Ninmah saw the magnificence and the power of the design, and her heart warmed. "My brother, your plan is magnificent," she said. "The creation of Shurubak, a city for healing, a place for me, for which I am grateful. But do not transgress your father, nor offend your brother." Enlil smiled, wisdom shining in his eyes. "You are wise as well as beautiful." Meanwhile, in the depths of the Abzu, Enki plotted his own domain, the bowels of earth to enter, the riches beneath to unlock. In his skyship, Enki measured the vast expanse of the Abzu, surveying its districts, a distant land bursting with riches, where mighty rivers rushed and great waters flowed. There he established his abode by flowing waters, the place of deepness. Enki carved a gash in the earth with the earth splitter, setting tunnels to reach the veins of gold buried deep. Nearby he placed mighty crushing machines, that which crunches and that which crushes, to break the ores, which were then carried by skyships to the landing place in the Cedar Mountains. From there, rocket ships transported the gold to the way station on Lahmu and onward to Nibiru, where it was fashioned to the finest dust used to protect the fragile atmosphere of the homeworld. Slowly, the breach in the heavens healed. Slowly, Nibiru was saved. Yet on earth, the Anunnaki toiled beneath the sun, their hearts heavy with complaint. The cycles of earth disturbed their spirits. The elixir was rationed sparingly. In the Aden, their labors were wearisome. In the Abzu, backbreaking. Teams returned to Nibiru, and new arrivals took their places. The Ijiji, dwelling on Lahmu, were the loudest in their protests. When we descend from Lahmu to earth, they demanded, we need a rest place. Enlil and Enki, troubled by the unrest, consulted with Anu, the king of the heavens. Let the leader come to earth, Anu decreed, and with Anzu have discussions. Anzu descended from the heavens to earth, bearing the complaints to Enlil and Enki. Let Anzu understand the workings, Enki said to Enlil. I will show him the Abzu, Enki promised, and you shall reveal the bond heaven-earth. Enlil consented, and Enki showed Anzu the toil in the mines of the Abzu, while Enlil took him to Nibruki's dark sanctuary to reveal the tablets of destinies. Enlil explained their power, the roles of the Anunnaki laboring in the 5 cities, and promised relief for the Igigi arriving at the landing place. But Anzu was a prince among princes of royal seed, yet his heart was filled with dark thoughts. Upon returning to the bond heaven-earth, he schemed to seize the tablets of destinies, to seize control of heaven and earth, to remove the Enlilship and claim rulership over both Igigi and Anunnaki. Unaware, Enlil stationed Anzu at the sanctuary's entrance and left for a cooling swim. Seizing the moment, Anzu snatched the tablets of destinies, and in the sky chamber he fled swiftly to the mountain of sky chambers. There, at the landing place, rebellious Igigi awaited him, ready to declare Anzu king of earth and Lamu. In the sanctuary of Nibruki, the radiance faded, the humming of the sacred formulas stilled. Silence prevailed where once power had pulsed. Enlil stood speechless, overwhelmed by betrayal. Angrily he turned to Enki. What of Anzu's ancestry? Who is this rebel? The leaders gathered, the Anunnaki who decree fates with Anu, to consult. Anzu must be seized, they decreed. The tablets must be returned. Who shall face the rebel? Who shall retrieve the tablets? All spoke of Anzu's invincibility, for with the tablets he was untouchable. From the assembly stepped forward Ninurta, son of Enlil, encouraged by his mother. I shall be Enlil's warrior. I will vanquish Anzu. With resolute heart, Ninurta set course for the mountainside where Anzu hid. From his lair, Anzu mocked him. The tablets protect me. Invincible I am. Ninurta loosed lightning darts, but they faltered, rebounding without harm. The battle stalled, weapons clashed, but Anzu's power held. Then Enki gave counsel. Stir a storm with your whirlwind, raise dust to cover his face, ruffle the wings of his sky bird. To Ninurta, Enlil entrusted a mighty weapon, the Tilu missile. Attach it to your stormer weapon, Enlil said. When wing to wing you meet, unleash it. So Ninurta soared again, whirlwind raging, as Anzu rose in his sky bird to challenge. Wing to wing, Anzu shouted in fury. This battle will be your destruction. Ninurta followed Enki's advice, summoning a dust storm that cloaked Anzu's face, exposing his wings. Into the midst, Ninurta released the missile, a streak of fire, a burst of brilliance, and Anzu's pinions were engulfed. Like butterflies, his wings fluttered helplessly. With a thunderous crash, Anzu fell, the earth trembling beneath his descent. Ninurta bound the fallen rebel, freeing captive Abgal and the Anunnaki held by Anzu's treason. To Anu and Enlil, Ninurta proclaimed his victory. He returned to Nibruki and restored the tablets to their innermost chamber. The brilliance returned, the hum of Mies in the tablets alive once more. Before the 7 who judge, Anzu's fate was sealed. Enlil and his spouse Ninlil, Enki and his spouse Ninki, once known as Damkina, and the sons Nanar and Marduk stood in judgment with Ninmah present. Ninurta spoke plainly. There was no justification. Let death be the penalty. He acknowledged the Igigi's right to complain, their need for rest on earth. Marduk countered with reason. By his evil deed, Anzu endangered all Anunnaki and Igigi. Enlil agreed with Enki and Ninmah. The evil must be extinguished. The verdict was death by execution. With the killing ray, Anzu's life breath was extinguished, his body left to the vultures. Ninurta declared, Let his body be left to the vultures, Enki commanded. Let him be buried on Lamu, in a cave next to Alalu, laid to rest. From the same ancestral seed they were, Enki suggested. Let Marduk carry the body to Lamu and remain there as commander. Let it so be, Enlil pronounced. Thus ended the mutiny of the Igigi and the fall of Anzu, a tale of treachery, power, and the unyielding will of the divine. The founding of Bad Tibira and the mutiny of the Abzu. In the days when the gold flowed slowly but surely from the deep veins of earth, The Anunnaki labored under the burning sky, their hands scarred and spirits weary. It was the 40th Shar, an age marked by toil and tension, when the first mutiny stirred among the workers in the Abzu, the watery depths of Earth's underworld. The breath of peace had barely returned after the fierce judgment and execution of Anzu, the sky thief, the rebel who dared to seize the tablets of destinies. Though the mutiny of the Ijiji had been quelled, its embers simmered still beneath the surface, threatening to flare anew. From the heavens, the great commander Marduk was dispatched to Lamu to tend to the spirits of the Ijiji, to restore their well-being and calm their restlessness. On earth, Enlil and Enki, brothers both and rivals, gathered beneath the sweltering sun, their faces grave as they discussed the uneasy balance of power and the growing unrest among their kind. "The stays on earth are too prolonged," Enlil said, his voice low but firm. "They weary the souls of those who toil," Enki agreed. "We must act before the discontent becomes revolt," Enlil warned. Together they sought the counsel of their sister Ninmah. Her visage, once serene and radiant, was now clouded with worry. "What ails you, sister?" Enki asked gently. "The cycles of earth," Ninmah whispered. "They strain the body and spirit of our people." "Gold to Nibiru must flow swifter," Enlil declared. "Salvation for our home must be hastened." "Agreed," they all said in unison, the weight of their mission heavy upon their hearts. Then Ninurta, wise beyond his years and versed in the innards of the planets, spoke up with clarity. "Let a metal city be established," he proposed. "There the gold ores of earth shall be smelted and refined. From this place lighter loads shall be lifted to Nibiru. Rocket ships shall bear more gold per journey, and room shall be made for the Anunnaki to return. Let the weary go home, and fresh warriors replace them." Enlil and Enki and Ninmah all nodded in favor, their eyes shining with hope. Anu, king of the heavens, was consulted, and his approval was granted with solemn authority. In the fertile lands of the Eden, on Enlil's insistence, the metal city rose. Built from the finest materials brought down from Nibiru and equipped with tools forged in the heavens, Bad Tibira was born. For 3 shars, 3 cycles of the celestial calendar, the city was constructed, each stone laid with divine purpose, each tower reaching proudly toward the sky. Ninurta, the visionary who conceived the plan, was made its first commander. The flow of gold to Nibiru quickened, the veins of earth yielding their precious bounty. Those who had come in the prior times, Alaugar, Abgal, Nungo, returned to their homeworld, while newcomers, younger and eager, took their places. But these fresh arrivals were unaccustomed to Earth's cycles, the harsh suns, the cold nights, the strange maladies that clung to the air. On Nibiru, the breach in the atmosphere was healing slowly. The great calamities that had scarred their home were forgotten by the young. Their golden mission was an adventure, a noble quest they embraced with youthful zeal. In Bad Tibira, the ores from the Abzu were smelted and refined, then carried by rocket ship to Lamu, and from Lamu in celestial chariots to Nibiru. The gold flowed like rivers, pure and steady, yet beneath the surface unrest brewed. The new Anunnaki who labored in the Abzu grew restless. Enki, consumed by other pursuits in the depths, failed to notice the gathering storm. His fascination had turned toward the creatures that dwelled among the waters and trees, strange beings who walked erect, whose front limbs resembled hands. In the tall grasses of the steppes, odd creatures moved, and Enki was absorbed in study, seeking to understand how Earth's cycles and atmosphere wrought maladies unknown on Nibiru. He built a wondrous place by the gushing waters, the house of life, filled with tools and instruments to unravel the sacred mysteries. He called his son Ningishida to join him, and together they shaped tiny me's, formulas that held secrets of life and death, of living and dying, of the very essence of Earth's creatures. Meanwhile, the workers in the Abzu grew more discontented. Ninurta was the first to perceive the danger. The ores lessened in Bad Tibira, and complaints rose like dark clouds, and Lil dispatched Ninurta to the Abzu to discover the truth. Accompanied by Anunnaki, chief officer of the mining, Ninurta entered the labyrinth of tunnels. He heard the Anunnaki's lamentations with his own ears. "Unbearable is the toil," they cried. "Our backs are broken, our spirits crushed. Let us rest, or we shall perish." Ninurta carried these words to Enki. "Let us summon Enlil," Enki declared. Enlil came to the Abzu and took quarters near the mining tunnels. But the workers' spirits had hardened. They rose as one, shouting, "Relieve Enlil of his burdens. We will proclaim war. With hostilities we will gain relief." They set fire to their tools, axes ablaze like torches in the dark. They seized Anunnaki in the tunnels and dragged him toward Enlil's dwelling. Night had fallen, the moon a pale watcher in the sky, when the Anunnaki surrounded Enlil's house, brandishing their flaming tools. Kalkal, guardian of the gateway, bolted the door tight. Nusku, Enlil's loyal vizier, roused his lord from sleep with urgent words. "My lord, your house is besieged. The battling Anunnaki stand at your gate." Enlil summoned Enki and Ninurta to his side, his voice heavy with disbelief. "What do mine eyes behold? Is this rebellion aimed against me?" The Anunnaki declared as one. "We have declared hostilities. The toil is excessive, the labor heavy. Great is our distress." Enlil relayed the tumult to Anu in the heavens. "What is Enlil accused of?" Anu inquired. "It is not Enlil, but the work that burdens," Enki replied. "The lamentation is heavy, the complaints daily. The gold must be obtained." Anu decreed the work must continue. Enlil ordered Anunnaki released for consultation. Anunnaki spoke plainly. "Since Earth's heat has risen, the toil is unbearable. Relieve the rebels. Let new ones come to their place," Ninurta suggested. "Perchance new tools can be fashioned so the heroes may avoid the tunnels." Enlil looked to Enki. "Let us summon my son Ningishida. I wish counsel with him," Enki agreed, and Ningishida was summoned from the House of Life. Enki and Ningishida spoke in whispers, their minds entwined in thought. "A solution is possible," Enki declared. "Let us create a Lulu, a primitive worker who will take upon himself the hardest toil. Let this being carry the labor of the Anunnaki on his back." The leaders of the Anunnaki were astonished, their voices hushed in disbelief. Who has ever heard of a being newly created? A worker who can perform the Anunnaki's labor. Ninma was summoned, the healer, the wise one versed in aid and succor. Enki's plan was told to her, and she answered with grave caution. "The task is unheard of," she said. "All beings descend from seed, one from another through ages. None have ever come from nothing." Enki smiled softly, nodding in agreement. "How right you are, my sister," he said. "But a secret of the Abzu I shall reveal. The being we need already exists. We must only mark him with the essence of the Anunnaki. Thus a Lulu, a primitive worker, shall be fashioned." A weighty silence followed as the assembly pondered the words. "Let us make a decision," Enki urged. "Give blessing to my plan, to create a primitive worker by the mark of our essence to fashion him." So began the turning of the tide in the Abzu, a turning that would forever change the course of the Anunnaki's destiny and the fate of Earth.